What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down some of the worst throwing habits that quarterbacks can get into and how quarterbacks can fix these bad habits with a few simple things. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it could teach you a few new things, you guys. And again, fellas, if you are a quarterback and you want to learn how to read defenses, how to recognize coverages, and with like 500 videos just like this one here pictured on the screen, check out that very first link in the description below if you want to improve your football IQ this summer. Like I said, we have 500 videos where we break down different coverages, the best plays to work against coverages, weaknesses against each defense, and then we categorize every single video into these categories you can see here, so it's easy to digest and easy to follow. So again, check out that very first link in the description below if you're interested in that, fellas. Let's get started with this video. So now, like I said, we are going to be showing some incorrect throwing mechanics examples from some high school quarterbacks, some youth quarterbacks, and talk about how you guys can avoid these problems, what causes these problems, and obviously how to fix the problem. So we're looking at this quarterback here. Now, this quarterback, everybody to the untrained eye or to everybody's eye can tell that this quarterback probably should not be leaning his head out of the throw like this, right? So everybody will say, hey, don't lean, keep your head straight, keep your eyes level. But honestly, that is not the root cause of the problem. So many quarterback coaches out there are very good at telling you what you're doing wrong, but they're not telling you why you're doing it wrong. And more often than not, that starts from your lower body and the sequence of your throwing motion. So when you guys go to throw, I think everybody can agree, right? Like when you go, you set up to throw, you want to be in a strong base. You want to have weight loaded onto your back leg so you can take that weight from the back leg and transfer it to your front leg. They call that leg drive, weight transfer, however you want to think of it. Then I think all quarterbacks can also agree, and all quarterback coaches can agree, that you want to be able to rotate and generate power from your hips. Now, not enough quarterback coaches know about the timing of the rotation of your hips. Just quarterbacks in general. It's not just about rotating your hips. It's about the timing of the rotation of your hips. And we're going to show an example of Tom Brady throwing as arguably, I think, one of the most efficient throwing motions possible. And he used to have that head dip problem, but he corrected it. And we're going to talk about how he corrected it. But it was all based on your throwing sequence. So first part of your throwing sequence is going to be the base. You have to get into a position where you can rotate from your hips and drive from your legs. So where you want to try to be is you want to try to have your back foot underneath your frame and probably about 60 to 65% of your weight loaded on that back leg. Now, the next part of that throwing sequence is going to be your front stride. So you need to get that front stride on the ground quick. You're not a pitcher. You're not coming off the mound. This is not baseball. You don't want to take this big, long step to the target. You want to step towards the target, step in place, but not to the target. And that's what this wide receiver does. And honestly, that is what causes the lean out of there with his head. If he would clean up his lower body mechanics, his head would be just, he wouldn't need to lean, because the lean is a source of power. It's just inconsistent power. And I'm going to talk to you about why that is. So the second part is the stride. Then the third part is going to be the hip rotation. And it is very important that when those hips are going through, those shoulders are staying back. When that front stride hits the ground, you are maintaining weight on your back legs so your shoulders can rotate back, aka the backstroke of the ball. This part of the throw right here. Now, when you take the football back, it is very, very important, guys, that you have that slight rotation of your shoulder, because that is the fourth part of the throwing sequence. The hips have to go through before the shoulders do. Very similar to a baseball swing. Quarterbacks and baseball hitters generate power the exact same way. You take a step to the pitcher with your front foot, you pivot off the back toe, and the bat comes through, creating bat speed, and that's how you're a more consistent hitter. Same thing when you're a quarterback. However, if the timing of your front stride is off, that throws off the entire throwing sequence. The front stride is probably the most important part next to your base when it comes to your throwing mechanics, because you see, this quarterback got into a good base. The first part of the throwing sequence is there, but he made a cardinal mistake, which is pushing off of the back foot. So a lot of pitchers have this problem. A lot of guys who play pitcher and quarterback, they will push off of that back foot from this base that is narrow. So when you push off of your foot, guess what happens? Your stride gets long. And now when your stride gets long, your feet end up being outside of your shoulder frame. Now, when your feet are super wide like this, do you think you're able to rotate? No, because again, you guys could all try it right now. You could stand up and stand with your feet outside your shoulders and try to rotate at your hips. Don't even worry about throwing, just try to rotate. Can't do it. It's impossible to do it. Now stand with your feet inside your shoulder frame. Try to rotate at your hips. Very, very easy to rotate. And we're going to show this when we show this example of Brady here in a second. So when you have that push off of the back foot and that leads to that long front stride. You no longer have the hip rotation, which is the third part of the sequence. And the second part of your sequence took a very long time. So when you negate the third part of the sequence, guess what your source of power is as a quarterback? It's going to be your head, it's going to be your shoulders, and it's going to be your arm. And that is not sustainable, fellas. Guys, quarterbacks, when you guys are in the season, because we're about to approach the season, a lot of throws like this, like let's say at a practice, you maybe get 60 throws. 60 throws of this type of throw where it is all arm, putting a ton of pressure on your elbow, your shoulder. You're going to be icing your arm after every single practice. That is not sustainable because we are not using my legs and we are not using my hips. And it solely has to do with that overstride. And the lean is just so the ball gets there. That's why quarterbacks do that. They pull the elbow down, they pull the head down, just so the ball can get there. But as we all know, this is not a very efficient release point to be at. Because, guys, when you go to throw, you want to think of your body like you have a line, like an imaginary line that goes down the middle of your body. They call it the midline, right? Center line, some people think of it like their spine. Some people think of it like a pole down the middle of your body. Guys, that pole does not want to move. Your spine does not want to lean. You want to be able to just rotate, and that rotation comes from your hips. But when you negate the hip rotation with the long front stride, your only source of power, because as quarterbacks, we're rotational athletes, going to rotate one way or the other. You dip, but that arm flies off the midline. You see how when he dips down, what does his arm do, right? So his arm, we want it to just be able to come through right there. But because he dips, the arm disconnects. It goes outside the frame, right? It goes up and outside the frame. If his head stayed level, but his shoulder was ripping open, his arm would go wide. Fellas, it is all about staying on that midline and using those hips to rotate. But I can't rotate and I can't use my legs if that stride is flawed. And that's the sole reason of the lean. A lot of quarterback coaches will have him do stupid drills, like have him stand next to a goalpost so he doesn't lean. And he's going to feel so weak with his throws because he still has the problem with his lower half. It starts from the ground up. So let's show this example here of Brady that I keep talking about, right? So again, it's all based on this overstride. He got to a good base, but because he had the overstride, that's what flawed the mechanics. It's the lower half. So let's look at this story from Brady. So arguably, same exact base that last quarterback got to. Where is his foot? His foot is underneath his shoulder. Where's his front foot? Underneath his shoulder. This is a strong base. His back shin is straight. His knees pressed out. Again, now let's look at the time. Remember, throwing sequence. It's about base, then it's about stride, then it's about hips, and as the stride gets down, the shoulders want to go back, right? Stride steps, shoulders go back. So those hips can bring the football through, alleviating pressure off the shoulder and alleviating pressure off the elbow, right? And that's sustainable. And that will not allow you to dip your head, pull your shoulder, pull your elbow down, because you won't need to. You'll be able to generate power from the lower half and the hips. So let's talk about this. So let's look at Brady here. He steps with the front foot. Is it a long step or a short step? Very, very short step. His feet are still able to stay inside of his shoulder frame. The last quarterback, that step had not been down yet. You look at when the step makes contact with the grass. When that step makes contact with the grass, you see how his arm's already at a 90-degree angle. That's solely because of the overstride. It's the wrong timing of his sequence. So let's look at Brady. When that foot makes contact with the ground, where's he at? He's in his backstroke, so that hip rotation is what brings that arm up to 90, not because of the timing. Your shoulders, guys, you've thrown so many reps that you're going to do pretty much the same thing with your upper half every time. If you generate power efficiently and take pressure off your arm, that has to do with the timing of the lower half, the timing of the foot strike, and the timing of the rotation of your hips. So you see, maintains weight on this back leg, so he's able to rotate those shoulders. First part of the sequence is good. Second part of the sequence is good. So now what's the third part? The hips. This back hip has to fire and this front hip has to open before the shoulders and before the football come through. And because on the strike of the football, he was in this shoulder closed backstroke position, he's in a great opportunity to do that. You see that front hip come open, right? You see the front hip ripping open, back hip driving through. Where's the shoulders and where's the elbow and where's the ball? Behind his hip. There is zero pressure on his arm right now. This is a throw that you can do 60 freaking times, fellas, and not even feel it in your arm. Again, it's about generating power, being accurate, but being efficient and sustainable. I want the same motion, but I want the same type of velocity on the ball on throw 1, on throw 65, because I'm using my legs and my hips. And that's not going to tire out like your arm would if you're throwing all arm. And guess what his head does? His head stays completely still. because he's rotating here. He's rotating down that midline. He doesn't need to pull the elbow because the timing of the strike and the timing of the hips were on sequence, fellas. So again, we compare this to the last motion. You look at the differences. Because the front foot didn't get down, because he's pushing off of that back leg, the front foot gets down, he's at a 90, he's got a dip. You see how that elbow and that shoulder are way ahead of the hip. The back foot is hardly even rotating through. It's all based on the lower half, you guys. And I can't stand the quarterback coaches who will just say, oh, he's got to stop leaning. Oh, he's got to stop dipping his elbow. Just stop doing that. Oh, you're leaning. You leaned on that one. Why is he leaning? What's the cause of the problem? There is always a cause and effect at the quarterback position. And if your quarterback coach can't identify that, you should probably look elsewhere, because that's how you guys make real progress with your mechanics. Because the whole reason you work on mechanics in the first place is to not put pressure on your arm so you can throw for longer periods of time, so you're more accurate. Throwing is not just about coming out to the field and just throw it. Oh, just throw it. I hate when people say that, because they have no idea what they're talking about, and they have no idea how to actually improve a quarterback's performance. Whether they've played the position or not, they don't know what they're doing. So, fellas, you have to worry about these things. The stride length, the timing of the foot strike, the hip rotation, all of those things matter to make you a more efficient passer. And when you see the best guys in the world, because Brady isn't the only example. You got Brady, you got Rodgers, Josh Allen. All these guys have these traits, and they have the right sequencing, and they have the right timing of the hips, the front stride with their motion. All of them throw differently too, by the way. They all have different motions, but they have the timing down, and that is what's going to make you an efficient passer. All right, fellas, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. Always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, if you would like 500 plus videos on how quarterbacks can read defenses, diagnose coverages, and find out the weaknesses in those coverages, check out that very first link in the description below, you guys. We'd love to get you on that. It's a lot of good information for you guys to improve your football IQ. So again, very first link in that description below. I'll see you guys next time.